This is episode number 249 of the Middle Country Public Library podcast. Hello and welcome. Sal DiVincenzo here with my Civil War guru colleague, Jim Ward.
Hello.
And if Jim is in the studio and it's a special episode, that must mean only one thing. It's
This Week in History.
Yes, it is. Thanks for coming down, Jim.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we kind of specifically picked this particular week.
Yes.
Because there's something big that happens this week that is very, very close to your heart.
Yes.
You're very passionate about this particular thing.
Very
Obviously, it has to do with the Civil War.
Of course.
Because if it, it wouldn't have been anything else, right?
Of course not.
And you're going to get to it. But let's start off. So this is the week of November 13th
to 19th.
So let's start off here, Jim. What you got for us this week?
So, November 13th, 1927, the Holland Tunnel was opened to traffic. It runs under the Hudson River between New York City and Jersey City and was the first underwater tunnel built in the U.S. It is comprised of two tubes, each large enough for 2 lanes of traffic.
That's really wild.
Isn't that something? 1927.
Can you imagine? And it's still working today?
Yeah.
Right? Almost 100 years later, they have hardly any leaks.
Isn't it amazing that they were able to build it underwater?
I know.
At that time.
With
the technology and everything.
That's right.
I find it amazing.
It's exactly.
Like, how does it not flood? It doesn't make sense.
I know. I mean, they could do that, but I still find lint in my pocket.
Exactly. Why can't we fix all this? And you're going to like the next one. November 13th, 1940.
Yes.
Walt Disney releases Fantasia.
Oh, this is the Fantasia.
Yep.
Oh.
82 years ago.
82 years ago.
Isn't that something?
And again, look at that animation and see how amazing that is.
Yeah.
It still holds up after all these years.
I'll be honest. I'm very partial to the old animation.
Yeah, me too.
Not so much the
traditional
CGI and all that stuff.
Yeah, the traditional 2D animation. Yeah, it's a lot more, that's people's actual drawings.
Exactly.
Right? I mean,
they're hard work.
Now, hey, let's not discount the wonderful people who do computer animation and all that 3D and whatnot.
Of course not.
But 1940.
1940.
Yeah, still, again, another thing that the tunnel doesn't flood and Fantasia is still a fabulous movie.
It's still a terrific one. November 13th. There's a lot of November 13th, so I apologize for that. November 13th, 1942, the 5 Sullivan brothers from Waterloo, Iowa, were lost in the sinking of the cruiser USS Juno by a Japanese torpedo off of Guadalcanal during World War II in the Pacific. Wow. Their deaths, because of that, the U.S. Navy changed regulations to prohibit close relatives from serving on the same ship.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so...
and didn't that go through also to different branches of the military?
I feel like it did.
So, right? Because Saving Private Ryan specifically, right?
Yeah.
It was about that.
It was supposed to be very similar to what happened with them.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, yeah, but I think you're right. I think
how many brothers were on the ship?
There were 5.
5 of them?
5 of them on one ship.
I'm sorry, that's poor planning.
Yeah.
No disrespect to the dead, but they shouldn't have done that.
They should have split them up in different units and stuff. But
yeah.
I guess back then,
poor mother, right?
Oh, my God, I can't even imagine.
Terrible.
November 13th, 1956, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that racial segregation on public buses was unconstitutional.
That's huge.
So I think that was 2 years after the Brown versus Board of Ed, the one that said that
the school segregation
had to end too. Yeah. This one I found very interesting. November 14th, 1666.
1666.
Yeah. Isn't that? I know I'm going before 1700.
This is I don't know. Is it some sort of time paradox that's about to happen?
Well, the first experimental blood transfusion took place in Britain utilizing 2 dogs.
No. No, sorry. That's terrible.
I found it interesting, but the poor dogs. That's what I'm thinking.
Is like it's like Fido and Buster. But think about it, 1666.
It's amazing they were able to
they were thinking of that.
Yeah,
back then.
Isn't that something?
Yeah,
and now it's utilized.
Now it's regular.
A regular thing.
Yeah, regular thing.
Look at that. Let's see. November 14th, 1889, newspaper reporter Nellie Bly set out from New York to beat the record of Jules Verne's imaginary hero, Phileas Fogg. Is that how you say that? Phileas?
With a PH, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who traveled around the world in 80 days.
Okay.
Bly returned 72 days later to a tumultuous welcome in New York.
Wow, we beat it by 8.
By 8 days.
Nice.
8 days.
Good for him. A terrible jet lag.
Yeah. I can't imagine how one did not have jet lag like that going around the world.
Hopefully he found nice, clean bathrooms on the
way. So let's see. November 15th. 1777, the Articles of Confederation were adopted by the Continental Congress, which then, of course, were scrapped in favor of the U.S. Constitution.
That's right.
1787.
We should have rapped that a la Hamilton, but we'll let it go.
Oh, no one wants to hear me rap, trust me. No one wants to hear that. November 15th, 1864, during the American Civil War, Union troops under General William T. Sherman burned Atlanta.
Ooh, the burning of Atlanta.
Yeah, they still hold a grudge down there over that.
I would think so.
You know, I mean, he burned down the city. November 15th, 1926, NBC launches.
Oh.
So there's something for
19
you.
what?
1926.
1926. The National Broadcasting Corporation.
Yeah, 1926.
1926.
Who would have thought?
Right?
This is whenever all the media was starting to change.
Yeah, the radio. Well, I'm assuming it was radio initially. Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah, in 26.
But then think about that. Then you have TVs within
Mr. Farnsworth,
20, 30 years. So
he comes along, he makes the television set. It's all good.
Mr. Farnsworth, is that his name?
Yeah, Farnsworth, yeah.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, see that?
Look at that, see?
You learned something new on the podcast.
I learned something new, and I'm supposed to be the history person. On November 15th, 1969, the largest anti-war rally in U.S. history occurred as 250,000 people gathered in Washington, D.C. to protest the Vietnam War. November 16th, 1959, the last Rodgers and Hammerstein musical, The Sound of Music, opens on Broadway.
Oh, The Sound of Music.
You know, I've never actually watched that.
Oh, well, you know what? It's coming up next week, so you can watch it on TV. They play it, right? They play
around
it
Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving, yeah.
But that's usually the March of the Wooden Soldiers they tend to play.
No, I think that's Christmas Day.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
You might be right.
I think Thanksgiving is. I think around
Sound
now.
Sound
of Music is probably going to be on ABC since Disney owns everything.
Can't promise I'm going to watch it. But,
okay, that's fine.
But maybe one day.
I don't know. It's got singing. It's got dancing. It might be 3 hours long. I don't know, Jimmy.
Yeah, I don't know if I have that in me. Let's see. November 17th, 1800. The U.S. Congress met for the first time in the new capital of Washington, D.C. President John Adams then became the first occupant of the executive mansion, later renamed the White House.
The White House.
The White House.
And you have a History Bites out there on the YouTubes, don't you?
Yes.
About the burning of the White House?
I do, from the War of 1812.
Yeah, we will put that in the show notes.
Yes, absolutely.
A little cross-promotion there for you, Jimmy.
Thank you. November 18th, 1883, we have a Connecticut school teacher, Charles F. Dowd, proposed a uniform time zone plan for the U.S. consisting of 4 zones. So I'm guessing that's the zones we live in.
Yeah, it's Eastern, Central, Mountain, Pacific.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 4 zones, yeah.
So that's interesting. So before 1883, what did they do in...
It was just local time, probably.
Interesting. That's so bizarre.
That is pretty wild, though.
Because you think about it.
I think a lot of that had to do with the train.
Oh, really?
I think it was very important to have a unified time because the train schedules.
That would make sense.
And that, I think, led to them coming up with, time zones and eventually coordinated universal time and Greenwich Mean Time being the basis of that. And yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. I just came from the National Clock and Watch Museum, so I have clocks and time on my head.
Is that right?
Yes.
Look at you.
There you go.
Sal DiVincenzo teaching me something
today.
There
you go. You should go. Columbia, Pennsylvania. There you go. Right.
Very nice.
Very nice.
All about clocks.
All about clocks.
Beautiful.
All right.
Here's one you'll like. November 18th, 1928. Mickey Mouse appears for the first time in Steamboat Willy.
Yes, and they consider that his quote-unquote birthday.
Is that right?
Yes, so there'll be some birthday things happening this week.
All right,
yeah.
Well, happy birthday, Mickey.
Happy birthday,
Very nice.
Mickey.
And now, we're up to it.
Okay, here we go.
November 19th, 1863. President Abraham Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address, during ceremonies dedicating 17 acres of the Gettysburg battlefield as a national cemetery. Famed orator? How do you say that?
Orator. I'm going to say orator.
Edward Everett of Massachusetts preceded Lincoln and spoke for 2 hours. 2 hours he spoke for.
Yes, but Lincoln
gets up and speaks for 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
And no one remembers whatever Edward Everett said.
Of course not.
They only remember now 7 years ago.
Exactly.
And that's what has gone down the test of time. And,
that's right.
And
people don't realize that 2 hours before, that guy had the meaning of life. He said it succinctly within the 2 hour period, but then, Lincoln got up there and just showed him up.
People have short memories.
I tell you. Even back then, short attention span.
So that was back in 1863. So we're at 159 years
159
of that happening.
Wow, okay.
So yeah, next year, what's going to happen with the 160th.
You're going to do it here at the library.
I'm going to dress up as Lincoln and do the Gettysburg Address.
This, folks who are listening, this is something you should come down and see because it's pretty remarkable.
I grow my beard out.
He grows his beard out. You channel the soul, the spirit of Lincoln.
Yes.
We have a seance. Lincoln shows up.
A nice ceremony.
Yes, we have some pancakes. It's great.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing.
So let's see. So now, November 19th of 1868, New Jersey suffragists attempted to vote in the presidential election to test the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which states, quote, "No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States." So 172 suffragists, including 4 African-American women, were turned away, and instead they cast their votes in a women's ballot box overseen by 84-year-old Quaker Margaret Pryor. So look at that. That's how early they were fighting for the vote.
Exactly, yeah.
November 19th, 1939, the construction of the first presidential library began as President Franklin Roosevelt laid the cornerstone next to his home in Hyde Park, New York.
Wow.
He donated the land, but public donations funded the library building, which was dedicated on June 30th, 1941. So he was still in office when his presidential library was dedicated.
Dedicated, wow.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
November 19th, 1954, the first automatic toll collection machine is used at the Union Toll Plaza on New Jersey's Garden State Parkway. So
1934?
1954.
1954. Think about how far we've come now, folks. There are no longer any, I'm not going to say any, but toll booths like in the tri-state area are almost non-existent. You
now
literally
just
drive underneath that thing, and it either takes a picture or takes your toll from your Easy Pass.
It's amazing.
Isn't it amazing? 54 to now.
Almost 70 years.
Yeah.
And look
how far we've come.
It's amazing.
It's crazy.
Amazing. November 19th, 1967, the Beatles released the Magical Mystery Tour.
Nice.
And November 19th, 1969, just about 5 months after Apollo 11, Apollo 12 lands on the moon. And interesting enough, Artemis 1
I was just going to say, Artemis 1 just lifted off.
So look at that.
It's on its way to the moon.
Yeah.
What? I'm sorry, the year again is 69.
69. Yeah.
Wow.
November 19th, 1969. So that was the second moon landing.
You're so far behind in that thing.
What's that?
You would have thought by now we would have had a mall up there in the moon. I mean, come on. At least a mall.
I just don't get why we have to rebuild
At least
everything.
the Spencer gifts up there. I mean, it's
I mean, you think that we would have just had this technology ready to go still since we'd done it already, but I guess they...
And to think the computer on the lunar module is probably less powerful than our Apple Watches and our iPhones and whatnot.
It's amazing.
It's crazy.
And then November 19th and 20th, the Cold War came to an end during a summit in Paris as leaders of NATO and the Warsaw Pact signed a treaty on conventional forces in Europe, vastly reducing their military arsenals.
Wow. And that was in
1990.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
That is something. So a lot happened this week in history.
Absolutely.
And it's very cool. that you came down to let us know all that wonderful stuff.
Happy to do it.
Thank you so much, Jimmy.
All right, thank you.
You know what we're going to do? We're going to put in the show notes. We're going to put your History Bites playlist.
Ah, very nice.
Yes, so for those of you who do not listen to our podcast often, every so often Jimmy comes down here. You're our history buff here at the library.
Yes.
And you tell us about a week in history that we picked. You tend to pick weeks that have some interest, something specifically important to you, I think, and when. So we try to work that out on the podcast. But you do these wonderful short 10 minutes or less videos on YouTube, kind of a presentation, a little PowerPoint presentation, called History Bites.
Yes.
So we're going to put in the show notes. You can watch all these different History Bites. How many episodes are we up to? 60s, I think. We're in the 60s.
I think we're in 70 now.
Yeah.
In the 70s.
Yeah, in the 70s. So definitely check that out. And we'll put it down there.
Very good.
Notes. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to older episodes or read those show notes, visit our website, mcplpodcast.com. Hey, if you're listening on YouTube, hit the like button. And what else should they do, Jimmy?
They should subscribe.
That's right. Subscribe. We have over 900 subscribers right now. Did you know that?
No,
on the
I
YouTube
did
channel?
not.
We would love to get to 1,000.
Let's get more. We want 1,000.
Yeah, so hit that button, and we greatly appreciate it. So for Jimmy Ward, I'm Sal DiVincenzo. We'll see you on the next show.